and doing push-ups, having young men get better all over the world, despite the fact that he's an enemy of the state. Mm-hmm. He's turned it around and has helped many young men go to Islam. Whether you agree with that or not is, I guess, a non-issue, but it is definitely a stronger path in degeneracy, getting them fit, teaching them to make money all over the world in the real world, which I also promote. Mm-hmm. And I would argue that Andrew Tate is one of the greatest forces for good and truth that exists in the world today, in front of your friend Jordan.
So on that, I would say, so again, I don't know Andrew, so take all of my comments with a grain of salt as somebody who's not an Andrew scholar, but looking at it from the outside, I see hypocrisy in his actions from, and I don't know Islam well enough. So again, I'm a headline reader right now, but at a headline reader level, him saying that women shouldn't be on OnlyFans, but then profiting off of women being on OnlyFans does not strike me as non-hypocritical. Also, and I think this is like, so when I look at Jordan and Jordan saying, yeah, fuck, I needed the medication and I had to do it. And I never read it as he wasn't being honest. I don't know if he talked about it or whatever, but I was impressed when Andrew wrote the tweet saying, I can't remember if he said one day he said, I almost cried in jail today, almost. And I thought, whoa, like he's actually being honest and he's being vulnerable. And then the other day he put out a post, and this is pretty recent. He's back home under house arrest. And he said, I haven't slept more than 45 minutes a night because I'm so worried. I don't remember if he used the word worried, but it was like, okay, whoa, like obviously this is really weighing on him and all that. Now that was not a signal to me that you have a person with a weak mind, nor is it a signal to me that Jordan having anxiety is a signal of a person with a weak mind. Now, if Jordan had been screaming from the rooftops, anybody that's on pharmacology is a fucking idiot and what are you doing? And that makes you weak and bad. And then it came out that he was using it. I have to imagine if he didn't out and out say, I've prescribed this to my patients and it's helped a lot of people. When I heard he was on it, I was like, oh yeah, like it didn't even make my radar as like, oh, that doesn't mean that you're strong anymore. Plus, let's say that Jordan is the weakest person in the world. I would still
Which
want
I don't
him to
believe.
say, no, and you haven't said that. I'm just saying, even if he was, I would still want him to say, hey guys, look, I'm totally weak, but I really encourage you to be strong. And I know that because I'm weak, you guys aren't going to take it as seriously, but it really, from all the clients I've seen, like that really feels like the right way to get the most out of your life. Like the right message is the right message. And that is, if somebody deploys, this is how I judge all advice. If somebody deploys your advice in their real life, will it move them towards human flourishing and reduce suffering? If yes, good advice. If no, bad advice. That simple. And so I don't care if it comes from the most flawed person in the universe. And this is how Tate made my radar. Because I was like, look, I got to admit, pretty inflammatory, kind of freaks me out. But 10% of what he says is really real, and you would be a fool to dismiss. And so yeah, I don't have the response to anybody that says a true message from what you're calling a hypocritical stance that you do, because I think most people are flawed. I can only imagine if people went back through everything I've ever said. I've said a ton of dumb, hypocritical shit.
Man.
And so I'm just like, oh God. So anyway, I look at people as wildly flawed individuals, hopefully trying to do their best, knowing that people will walk lines, flirt with shit that they probably shouldn't. But I know about myself that if every word I had ever said were recorded, especially with my wife, who I lay some outrageous shit on her, I would not like that. So I give everyone that grace.
Yeah. What makes you happy?
JWaller, are you now interviewing me?
Yes.
What makes me happy?
We can argue about Jordan and Tate if you want to.
If there's more to say, I'm happy to say it. I said everything I had to say. If you have more to say, please.
There's no bullet I won't take for Tate. I know.
Let's talk about that just at a brotherhood level. So if you take a bullet for Tate, you die and leave your kids alone.
No. Andrew would take care of my whole family. What do you mean?
So because of that, if that weren't in place, is that a key part of why you would take a bullet?
That's just an understood that he'd take care of everything. I think that the relationship we have fosters itself to fighting for each other in every way. So he does things for me all the time. In fact, Just the other day, I needed something. He texts the CEO immediately. I mean, like, we're constantly working together and doing things. When he was in jail, I would go pick his mom up and stepdad meet them and take them to lunch. You know, we cover each other like that. It's honor. It's something that I think is highly missing. Brotherhood is highly missing from young men today. They're on their phones or by themselves. I have a real relationship with a real person. I don't look, I told Andrew this once, man. I was like, dude, I got nothing against Cobra Tate, but I love Andrew. And there's no JWaller when I'm at his house. It's, hey, Justin, or Cowboy, or whatever. And so it's just something that I feel like a lot of people are missing. A lot of people think that we're missing something, our group of friends. You know, oh, you don't have kids. Well, newsflash, I got kids. Oh, you don't have this. Dude, I have it all. I literally have everything. I have family. I have children that love me. I have a wife that loves me. My mother-in-law brings my kids out to my car when I leave for work. I got Andrew. I have brotherhood. I have Tristan. I have the whole war room. There's nothing missing from my life. I am truly, truly happy in every way. I think a lot of people want to hate on our group and say that we're not happy, or like we were aimlessly sleeping with all these women and stuff. And it's just not true. Just last week when I was at his house, he's sitting here, I'm sitting by his mom, his stepdad's over here, Tristan's here. We're all joking, laughing. His kickboxing coach is across the way, screaming at us to eat onions because it makes us stronger. It was a family. It was the most wholesome thing you've ever seen. I always say the best side of Andrew is the side that the world never sees. And if I were ever to give him advice, it would be to show who you are when it's just us, because it's one of the most incredible men you'll ever meet. And of course I'm going to feel that way. Of course I'm biased. Of course I feel that way about my closest friends and Tristan and Sterling Cooper and some of these other guys and some of the guys that I know from the war room, of course. But it is such a great honor for me to be able to protect and stick up for them with the opportunity that I've been given. And I won't let that pass me by.
What would you do if you found something that made you believe he is guilty?
It would break my heart. Because if he's guilty, not only am I wrong, I'm a fool. Because I've spent way too much time in his house. He would have had to do it right underneath my nose. He would have had to be doing it in multiple cities like, it's just not even a thought in my mind. It's not even a possibility. I've been around him way too much. I have way too many employees. I've been lied to way too many times. I would have caught a micro expression somewhere. He is the most consistent person I know. And Tristan, for that matter. I don't worry about whether they're going to get upset with me about something or if we're going to argue about something. I've never had an argument with either one of them. We've debated for sure and enjoy doing it, and it's fun. But it's only about getting better and what the goal is and on the mission to the goal. It's never personal. He's one of the most consistent people I've ever met. Truly. I know what to expect when I talk to him. So, I hope that answers the question. But
it does. I have another layer to that. So now
please.
Abstract it, because what I find interesting in you and what I think you represent, and what I hope young men hear from you, there is something special that they should be unapologetic about building a group of men that hold them to a standard, and that they hold them to a standard, and that they have a brotherhood, and that there is honor, and that hopefully that they love a small, almost inevitably, a small group of people that they would lay their lives down for. And this is, if I can imagine that very little good comes out of war, but that tends to be where people say, like, I've never had that sort of camaraderie like I did when we had a shared adversary and our backs were against the wall and it really was live or die. We're wired for that as a species. And so in a modern context, you don't really get that. I had that a little bit in business, and every now and then there'll be a clique inside the company. Right now we have a crew of guys, and it's not this far to being like, I take a bullet for these guys, but it feels different. There's a group that stays really late every night, not because they have to, but because they want to. And it fills something in my life that I don't get anywhere else. And so the edge I want to explore with that is, I've heard you say that you had been betrayed before. And so it really took you a minute to trust, but that giving yourself over like that again and trusting again felt awesome. And so I want to know, what would you do if you then felt betrayed by them? Anybody, you're like abstracted from them, because I'm not asking a question about them, but you're in a group of people and you feel that sense of brotherhood, camaraderie, and all that. But then there is a betrayal. Would you go, fuck, I knew it, like this was all bullshit and it could never last? Or is it like, bad apple, remove them, I understand now what better to look for, have to protect the brotherhood?
Absolutely bad apple. Because I think having family and people you can trust relentlessly is one of the highest peaks of human joy. I really do. There's a special feeling that crosses through me when I know for a fact, if I were to die today, that my kids would have to worry for nothing. And there's a certain honor I get from knowing that if he were to die today, that I would take care of his kids in the same way. I think it's a very rare thing in the world today, and that's why I believe we're true. We're not rich, we're wealthy. You know, I genuinely believe that. So if someone were to hurt me today, it would suck, and I would have to process it just like any other human. I would feel the pain just like any other human. I'm not superhuman. I'm, like you said, plenty of flaws. But I don't find it to be productive for me to shut off the ability to trust moving forward, because without trust, there's no speed. And without speed, there's no money, there's no love, there's no growth, there's no business, and there's no family. So you would have to trust again.
How did you guys build that trust?
Over time, we spent a lot of time together. I think you learn a lot about a person when you look them in the eyes. You go through adversity together. We train together. We do all kinds of things together. Just the other day, we were doing mitt work, and Amir is his trainer from Storm and Luton. And Amir was punching me like crazy, and he was hitting me in the solar plexus with the pad. If you've seen Amir, imagine a silverback gorilla with pads in his hand. He's going to punch you. And he kept knocking the breath out of me, and it's cardio boxing. And just dying, just tapping hands, going in, and you go through things together, been through the mountains together, done war room events together, been in situations in Odessa, Ukraine, and in Dubai, and like, okay, well, you do this, I do this, boom, 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 we'll get this done, bam, boom. You know, we work together on a daily basis. The real world is, in my opinion, probably the best online school that's out there right now. And I think that a kid would be better off doing the real world than he would be going to Stanford. And the reason is because there's millionaires that are doing that business that day, teaching you in real time. And there's a group of people helping you. Instead of you studying, it's like, hey, here's the answer. This is what works. And so doing that with him and doing that with those young men and helping them grow, no, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. Nobody thanks me for giving them a roof over their head when they pay rent. And certainly not when I hit a construction schedule. So I've never been happier doing this, and that's largely in part to him, you know, asking me to come on and help be a part of it. And I'd much rather be on a team that wins championships than be Kevin Garnett and never win anything, you know, and be the best player on my team. I think it's lame, and I think
very unusual.
Yeah. Well, I also believe that Scottie Pippen was one of the best players ever, because he could have left and been the star somewhere, but he decided not to because he saw what Michael had. And for that reason, they had plenty of trophies. And I think in the end, if you can be selfless enough to look at where it makes the most sense, maybe you could have been the 5th best player in the league, or you could have been the number 1, 2 man ever to live. So to me, man, I know who I am as a person. I have tons and tons of employees. I don't need the ego boost. I want to win, and I want to do the right thing for these young men. And I believe that what I'm doing with Andrew is that. So there's no other direction for me to go.
Do you guys have like a credo? Do you guys have a list of things like, to be in this brotherhood, you must adhere to these 5 principles?
Andrew has 41 tenets. I don't know them by heart. He wrote them right after he went to jail. You can easily find them online. And
is that an active part of the core group of guys? How many of you are there in like the tight circle?
4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you guys live by those things? Obviously not.
There's not a credo there, right? But I'll tell you another thing about Andrew that people don't know. He has friends that are from 20 years ago, never became, you know, super famous or rich or anything like that. He still flies them over to spend time boxing and training together. You'll see him sometimes in Tate Confidential. These are very normal guys that he's had 20-year relationships that he refuses to turn his back on. You know, is there a creed amongst our group of friends? The obvious stuff, you know, do what you say you're going to do, show up and train, you know, be ruthlessly loyal around the subject of women and money. I believe you can learn a lot about a person by just women and money alone. And I don't particularly like to have friends that are not in abundance of either, because if they find themselves in a desperate situation, they will fall to their desperation. And so we try our best to keep men around us that at least have done the work and the ethics to put themselves in a position to have a little bit of money and women, or there's a relationship that's so old, you know, nobody would ever snake you. And so the group has that. We haven't written them down. There's not a credo where I don't think we're getting like group tattoos or anything. So
I don't know. Why not?
yeah.
Okay. Talk to me about the frame. Like, what does it mean to have a frame, hold a frame?
Yeah. I believe it's a man's job to be a leader, and I think you should lead with conviction. And I think it's not a popular thing to say, but I think it's overwhelmingly true that women would rather a man come in, be strong, be the rock that all of her emotional waves crash into, because let's face it, women are more emotional than men. I don't believe that men should show a lot of emotion. I do think it's okay at times if they do, but I think overdoing that, especially with your partner, is not a good idea as a man. I believe that men should open doors. I believe they should pay every tab. I believe they should make call the shots in the household and make all the business decisions. It's when a man has not put himself in a position to get that respect and trust from a woman that all falls down. So a lot of men, they want that respect. They want to be the leader. They want to do do the things that, a leader should get. But then in turn, they oftentimes are not doing the right things to deserve that credit from the woman. And so she doesn't give that to him. And for that reason, I think a lot of situations fail when the man doesn't show up the way that he should. But I think ideally a man should not only be strong enough to make all decisions, but even protect her from things that are not going to be ideal for the relationship, like having a crazy social media with your ass and titties everywhere. Not popular, but true.
Okay, so what does it mean to hold the frame?
Women are going to naturally, what they call shit test, right? To test you to see how confident you are. Have you ever heard of a shit test?
I haven't, no.
Really?
I'm so outside of this world, but I find it absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, so it is a real thing. Like a girl might, here's one that's going to piss some people off. Let's do this. Let's say your girlfriend comes to me and she's like, hey, babe, I want to go on a girls trip. No. You got a problem with that, right? You normally you would.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I would never say no. I don't even understand the impulse yet.
So no is, why would I put my girl in a club somewhere all dolled up in a dress and high heels with a bunch of other single women so guys can come hit on her? It's not distrust. It's not insecurity. It's just a foolish move.
But it's only foolish if you think she actually might cave. Unless you're worried about her getting assaulted.
No. Why would you put her in that circumstance? Why wouldn't you protect her from that circumstance? Doesn't she want to know that you're territorial over her and you would want to protect that at all rights? Don't women deeply, deeply want you to feel for them in that way?
No. So
yeah,
okay.
I'm glad we're here.
Well, we have to tease things apart because there are averages. And so, yes, I think a lot of women do, but I think if they're in that phase, there isn't the maturity to the relationship that I think is the great joy. So this is how I came into my marriage. So I was very bad with women when I was young. And I would, not figuratively, I would literally show up with flowers and a poem, custom written for that girl on the first date. There was one girl I wrote a very clever poem, if I do say so myself, just to get the first date, which P.S. I did not get. And so...
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah. Oh, this is all terrible. I want everyone to understand did not work. So long story short, I finally cracked the code and I figure out what you have to do. And then suddenly getting women was very easy. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is a game. There's psychological principles at play. If you understand the psychological principles, then you can position things well and you can present yourself in a certain way and what we would call hold the frame. And so once I learned how to do that, very, very easy. And then what I learned though was, okay, what I resonate with is I want to share my life with somebody. And there's a great story about U2, the band. U2 started out as a punk rock band. and evolved over the years. But their whole thing was, we're going to find out what it looks like when a band stays together for their entire career. And so Bono could have broken off and done his own thing. Maybe the Edge could have gone off and done his own thing. But they said, nope, that's not the game we're playing. The game we're playing is, what does it look like when a band stays together for 30 years? And so we all got to watch that play out. And so when I proposed to Lisa, my now wife, I was like, I want to share this life with you. And I want to grow with you, build things with you. Like, I want to do all of this with you. And on our first anniversary, I gave her a 50th anniversary card. And I said, I'm going to earn this. And one day this will be true. And our whole life has been predicated around that and being honest. And I said, look, I'm always going to want to sleep with other women. Don't be paranoid about it, because I'm committed to you. And so I won't sleep with other women. But I don't ever want you to feel insecure because I'm saying dumb shit like, oh, I only have eyes for you, because you're going to know better than that. And I don't need you to pretend that you don't find other people attractive. What I need to know is that despite the fact that you find other people attractive, despite the fact that there will be times where I'm up and times where I'm down, I need to know when I'm down that you have so much belief in me that you would never cheat, that would be disloyal. And speaking of creeds, that you would just never violate the promise that we're making to each other. And so
but you do know that that's bullshit, right?
No, it is 100%
bullshit,
accurate.
though. Let me tell you why it's bullshit.
Please.
The only reason it's bullshit is because you actually achieved everything you set out to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
You could have made that creed all day long, but if you would not have become Tom Bilyeu,
yep,
and you would have been in a position, or put her in a position where she didn't respect you anymore, she would have cheated on your ass, and that creed would have been out the window. You were a winner, and for that reason she stayed. Because I don't want to mix the truth to young men about what it is. It's not your love story or your poem. It's the fact that you became who you are as a man.
Let me ask you, how many years do you think I made her poor before I made her even sort of middle class wealthy?
She believed in you the whole time.
Yes,
because
for sure.
Women,
but that's very
women
different.
bet on horses.
Yes, we don't have any disagreement.
And she saw in you what was always inevitable to become true, and that you would win.
Okay, but then it isn't about me ultimately accomplishing it. It's about her believing in me, which
the
I
whole
agree
time.
with.
And you should always be taking her on that ride. It's your job.
Yes, but understand, so this all started with, would I let her go on the girls' trip, and do I think that it's foolish? So we have created this pact, marriage. I mean, for us, it was very traditional. So we had vows, and we took those vows seriously, and we talked a lot about what they meant, and we don't even make jokes about divorce. We call it the D word. I don't tease her like, oh, do that, and I'm going to leave you. We don't fuck around with that.
Yeah, you don't put it in consciousness. I
no
love
way.
that. Yep.
So we do all kinds of things like that to protect it, talk about how we want to share our life, build our life together. We do things like, hey, we're founding this company, and it's going to be 50-50, and I care not about, like, I've said things like, because I really believe it, hey, if I ever found out you were cheating on me, it's fine. You have earned your half. I will give you my half. I'll never speak to you again, but take your half and go. I'm not going to fight you.
So you put that in reality and not the D word?
Yeah, because what I want her to understand is, this is, when I'm talking about that, I need her to understand, I wouldn't be who I am if you hadn't helped me become this person. And I recognize your contributions. There was a moment, your fans are going to hate this. I'm not a crier. There are times where I'm like, I actually would feel better if I could cry, but I just can't cry. And there was one time I was fucking ugly crying, because this was before the internet came along, and I was just starting to be really successful. And I think it was tied to when I got put on a magazine cover. And I was like, the world is never going to know that I wouldn't be who I am without you. And that I literally don't know who I would be if I had met her. I met her when I was 24. And so I was 24, I was broke, I was stupid, I had big ambitions, and she believed in me. She looked at the horse and she saw something. But at the time, I was not going anywhere useful. And so it really was her having the belief, like you said, but me knowing that she had gone for a long time helping turn me into something, and I became that thing, and she was never going to get recognized for it. And that was really heartbreaking. Now she's ended up getting her fair share of credit and stepping out in front of the camera.
Do you think that was really important to her?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted her to be recognized for
though.
what she'd done.
You were working really hard. She was supporting you. I honestly, genuinely think that your relationship, from what I can tell with your wife, is beautiful. I just simply disagree with how you got there.
Okay, so give me, how do you think we got there?
Like you were sitting there crying because you believed that she wanted some kind of credit for all this work that you had done while she had supported you.
No, I was crying because I was so grateful and I didn't think she would ever get the credit. Not that she wanted it.
But if she didn't want the credit, don't you think she was fulfilled already in what she had done in supporting you?
Yeah, and that was probably part of why it was so, actually, no, mixed in that was by then I knew that she was very unhappy being a stay-at-home wife.
Really?
Yeah.
And she didn't want to have children.
She did in the beginning and did not around that time. Yeah.
What do you think drove that?
I think it's complex. So I want people to hear me. I am walking a dangerous path that I do not recommend to people. And I think the default path should be children. I think the default path should be marriage and children, but you have to figure out how to manage relationships. Very difficult, especially if you have kids. Yeah. So like I thanked you, I thank people very sincerely for having children, and I'm very grateful. And I think it is what most people should do for a whole host of reasons. So when she said she didn't want to have kids, I was like, you need to really think about this, because I will get my meaning and purpose from building businesses. And while I think it's a higher risk path, I love it. And so far have not found myself saying, I want kids enough that I want to have them now. So what I've always said about kids is I really want kids, and I do. The only thing I want more than I want to have kids is to not have kids. Now, I've big brothered, and I know it's not the same. It's a very small fraction, but I've big brothered enough to know what it's like to have somebody look up to you, to have somebody who's like, you're shaping me into an adult. It is a deeply meaningful relationship, even at that level. So I can only imagine when it's your own progeny. So as somebody who doesn't have kids, I'm about as aware as you're going to get the power of having children. But I always just didn't want them a little bit more than I wanted them. And so I was honest with myself and I said, you're going to regret this decision when you're 80. Once I'm done being a player and a coach, I will regret that I don't have kids. I will regret that they don't live beyond me. And I know that when I'm on my deathbed, I'll be like, man, that really sucks. Now I can give a whole masterclass on it's all about controlling your own frame. It's not, controlling a frame isn't just about other people. It's how do I think about myself and my own choices? And so I know a part of me will be very sad. A part of me sad today that I don't have kids. But it's very easy for me to frame what I'm doing and the choices that I'm making in a way that make me feel very good about my life.
What stops you from reframing it for yourself if you know this is
to have kids?
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah, but why don't you?
Because I don't have anything that compels me to make that change. I don't think that my life would be better. I think it would be safer, but not better.
You don't think that your kids will add to your life?
I think they would. But they will also take something away. There's no
Which
utopia.
would be what?
There are only trade-offs.
Okay, yeah, but
Choices would be one. Freedom. How I spend my time. I know that I would have a very deep sense of obligation to my kids, which is beautiful. I love that about me. I love that about me. The same way that I feel a deep sense of obligation to all the employees that count on me to make wise decisions so they can pay their rent and raise their kids. I love that about me. I love that I feel that
What
way.
would you say, and by the way, I do not agree with this.
Yeah.
But what do you say to the people that would say that that's selfish?
I don't mind at all. Sure.
Yeah.
I won't say that I don't care about what other people think, but I don't steer by what other people think. I think we are all the shout and the echo. So the shout is what you do and what you say, and the echo is what people think about it.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I hear that coming back. And if it's brutal enough, I saw one of your posts, you said, I'd look at, when people throw hate at me, I'd look at that to see if there's anything valid. So I'm the same. If something negative comes back, I'm
I
like,
think it's healthy.
is there, for
Is
sure.
there truth in it?
Yeah.
It's the people that don't look at all.
They're insecure.
Yeah, they're insecure. Yeah. I like to look at it and really try to find truth, but yeah.
Because it will make you better. It will make you more effective. It will make you more powerful. So I do and believe that which moves me towards my goals. So I'm very honest that life is trade-offs. Now, I was far more worried about my wife not having kids
as you should
than
be.
myself.
That's where it, to me, surprisingly, she doesn't have that urge.
She has the urge. She feels similar to me in that she wants kids, but she wants to not have kids more. But I think being a woman, it's inevitable that that pull will be much harder for her. So we ran a bunch of thought experiments that will only dampen whatever regret she's going to have so much. And we just said, what's this going to look like when you're no longer interested in being an entrepreneur and you're tired and you don't have grandkids and you're looking around at your friends and they do have grandkids? How are you going to build meaning and purpose into your life? Because kids to me are two things. They are a sense of I live on, which I do not underestimate, and they are a sense of meaning and purpose. I have done something with my life that mattered. And if you have kids and you raise them well, you will feel that. And if you don't, you're misframing it, unless you were abusive or horrible or something.
Right.
So you get that. And nature has given you that. Nature has built that in. And so it's like, I really caution people against. Nature has built this up. You've got a ready-made sense of meaning and purpose. Yeah. And if you shun that, it's a very high-risk game. So anyway, we have walked into this with our eyes wide open. The thing that really scares me for my wife is if I die and she doesn't have kids. And that was always her terror. She was like, if something happens to you and I don't have kids, and I was like, you have to really think about that. And so, because my whole thing was, if you want kids, we'll have kids, but I'm not going to wake up in the middle of the night to take care of them. I'm building business. I'm slaying dragons, right? Yep. That's why I see it.
And I don't.
I don't
wake up for the kids. No.
And so upon reflection,
I believe in gender roles completely also. I have no problem.
I believe in gender roles.
Yeah, gender roles. I have no problem with women in business at all. But when it comes to a household, I believe that the happiest people do have gender roles in place.
Dude, I want to say you're crazy, but I agree.
Yeah, I know. And it's not even, it's super unpopular to say, and it blows my mind that it's said that way. Women have, like, I would not take my children to a male babysitter. They're not wired to nurture and love those kids in the same way that a woman is.
I would say by default, the law of averages says that it will end up being a woman.
Yeah.
Everything in terms of nurturing, ability to care for, I'm sure there are guys out there that are amazing. It's just, it's going to be a small fucking number.
Right. Very small. And I feel like I'm loving my children every day when I'm working endlessly to create a better life for them in a future. One of my biggest goals in life is to have something set up when I'm gone. I have this vision of a gentleman walking in a suit. All my children are sitting around a table, and he starts to unload what I set up for them. And my kids are just sitting there saying, he did what? And he put it in this, and then it's a trust, and we don't pay that as a man, you know? And I'm not there anymore. And they knew I took care of them fully. And they knew that when I was gone and I was, you know, on the road, or when I was stressed out, or if I was sitting at the dinner table quiet, that I was fighting those battles for them, and I left it all to them, and that there's a legacy there. So I mostly get encouragement and motivation from envisioning who I'll be. It never comes from anger. It never comes from competing, really. And that particular moment is a moment that I'll never live to see, but I know for a fact it'll be real. And it inspires me to work for those little girls every day, and to, you know, make sure that I'm setting up their reality in a way that benefits because I was here, you know. And a guy like you not having a child is, it's interesting to me because there's so much you would be able to give them, you know. And I know that you've given that to the world, but in other ways, I can't imagine how you'd give to that kid. You know what I'm saying? And I mean that super respectfully. No, you would be a killer fucking dad.
Very kind.
Yeah.
I'm sure I will do my dad arc on the internet.
I'm not being nice to you.
No.
Like, I genuinely believe that. Like, the kid would end up being a guru.
You know? Maybe. I mean, that's a roll of the dice.
Well, guru.
One of the things that haunts me, and in fact, I want to ask you, so you're wealthy, you're very successful, your kids are going to struggle to get out from under your shadow already. So what do you do to make sure that money doesn't break them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I'm going to face that mostly as it comes to me. I do want to put my kids in a position to be affluent with the right people in their life. Networking wise, they won't be able to get out of hard work. I suspect they will work for the family business. If they choose not to, I would like to see them marry off to somebody and go help that gentleman build. And I'm talking about my girls. People ask me all the time, was like, well, what are you going to do if your daughters marry a guy like you? I fucking hope so. I really do. because he'll be strong enough to allow her to let go and be inside his frame because she believes in him and he's strong, just much like your wife believed in you and your strength. I would want that for my little girls, or they would work for me. I think one of their bigger issues is going to be finding a man that I don't absolutely beat in a landslide in every category. I think that's going to be their problem, and that's a problem I like them having. So in regards to not spoiling them too much, I don't think it's completely possible, but I do think that giving them a firm taste of reality and what the world actually looks like outside of their world, like making them visit the real estate properties, making them work in the business. Those are obvious things. And then slapping my own hand and creating the frame with myself to make sure I don't spoil them too badly, which will be hard.
I bet.
It's going to be super hard. I already bought Emery. I told you I bought that Huracan Evo. Well, I bought her one that she can get in and I'll get to drive her around in it. So I'm already kind of spoiling her a little bit, but shit, she's got a bigger closet than I ever had growing up. You know, she's spoiled, and Eva is not quite old enough to be super spoiled yet, but
Give her time.
give her a little time. Yeah.
Do you have an ideal number of kids you want to have?
I don't, man. And also, just to clarify, I don't know that I'll ever have another wife. You know, I love my family. I really, really
Do you call her your wife?
I try not to. Let me tell you why I try not to say it on YouTube or anything like that, is because I don't believe in bringing the state into my business. And I feel like if I were to call her my wife a whole lot, it would just be used against me.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? But that's probably not true. Plus there's some, we have some things in place, but yeah, she's my wife, man. I love that girl, bro. Completely.
There's some part of you though that still is, I don't know what word you're going to accept. So feed me the word. I'm going to give you a starter word, but is tense, that whether it's, I don't want to call her wife too much because it can be used against me. Like literally, Lisa, what would you like? I will write everything down that could be read in court. Whatever. And to me, that's the point. Like, I don't know why people stay in a relationship if they don't feel that way. Women are a sacrifice. My wife is a pain in my ass. And so I'm like, if you weren't the most amazing creature I've ever encountered in my life, I would never put up with just having to deal with what somebody else wants. Like everything is a compromise when you're in a relationship. And I'm sure she feels exactly the same way.
Well, maybe that's just people affecting my viewpoint on the subject. She's not a thorn in my side at all. And I don't have any major concern that I'm going to have legal issues with her. I will tell you a large part of my childhood revolved around that. We did 12 custody courts. My mom cheated twice. They were going to put us in a foster home. There's a lot of violence and things going on. My mom, she even made a YouTube channel when I first started.
Really?
Yeah, like trying to like talk shit, and she put
go about you?
Oh yeah. Oof. She's sick, bro. Like, she's not a bad person. She's just sick, man. None of her family can talk to her. She just beat the shit out of us, like physically. She's a strong woman. A lot of my genetics actually come from my mother. She was built like an Amazon. Anyway, I say all that to say that I saw a lot of what happens to a man when he gets wrecked in a divorce. My dad got charged with everything from battering her, sexual molestation of us. They were sending us to child therapy, all these things. I don't feel like I have trauma from it. I feel like I'm a grown man that can look back at it and say, those things happened. What can I learn from it? What could my dad have done differently, maybe, that he didn't even have the information to know he could have done? Because back then, all you had was brimstone and the Bible, right? And that's what he had saw work with his dad. His dad came home from World War II, or I guess World War I. He was going to World War II. He built a house. He farmed a bunch of cotton in Oxford, Mississippi. He had one wife his whole life. She would bring tea and cook 3 meals a day. The structure worked. And I see that worked, and my dad tried it. And my mom would, go seeking other men. Hypergamy. In church, mind you.
That's rough.
Yeah. And then he was taken through this ringer of false allegations, and he fought his ass off and fought his ass off and fought his ass off to keep us in his life. And I don't know if you saw it, but I just paid his house off.
Congratulations.
And yeah, it was probably one of the biggest achievements of my life, man. And if anything, I just have a very realistic understanding of how the court system and everything is set up. But it doesn't change my feelings for that woman. She's changed her name. She's a big ass ring, big ass house, babies, nanny, the whole thing.
Do you live in the house with her?
And she likes blondes.
That does not hurt.
Uh-huh.
That does not hurt.
When I'm there, I have 2 houses.
In Louisiana?
And yeah. So I have 2 houses that I keep open. The YouTube team comes and they stay in the old house, and then I stay in the big house with the nanny, the kids, and the wife, and a lot of times the mother-in-law's there, and I have people coming over and things like that. I've never said any of this online actually, but I have the most fulfilling family life I could ever imagine or dream of. I get photos like this podcast. My little girls will watch this. This will be playing in the living room. There's no lies. Even I know my mother-in-law sees the things I say, but you know what? There's a lot of respect between all of us. There's a lot of spending time together and having real conversations that have depth to them. There's a lot of trust there. And I lead the family and the businesses with conviction. And I love all my people and I love my family, and they know that. And I can be an asshole if I need to, but most often I never even need to. And I really, really have a fulfilled life in that particular area, man. My family life is much better than anything you'll ever see online. And
why do you think people have a hard time believing that?
Because they're not seeing all of me, and a lot
because you don't want them to see all of you?
I think a lot of it is my fault. When I didn't expect to come in online. I met a group of guys. I'd always kind of wanted to. What man doesn't want to have a big podcast, especially like nowadays, right? But I wouldn't let myself because I wasn't a liquid millionaire yet. So on my whole 20s, I remember I would watch all this stuff. I've watched you for years. I knew who you were. When Thomas sent me the message, like, yo, Impact Theory called, I'm like, bullshit. I was super excited, man. And I'm honored to be here. But I knew I'd wanted to, but I wasn't in that place in my life where I felt like I had completed all the boxes I had set out to check.
I know the feeling very well.
Yeah. And so I didn't. And also learned from that the goals that I made in my 20s, I was not yet qualified to make for my 30s. So when I got to 30 and I wasn't where I wanted to be, I felt like I'd have failed. But what I had forgotten is that the goal that I had set, I wasn't qualified to make at 24, right? And I met Sterling Cooper and I met Andrew and Tristan, and I was thinking about joining, and I even started a channel. And right about the time I did is when Andrew texted me. He's like, yo, we were in Miami. And he said, come eat dinner with me. So I did. And he's like, dude, I really believe in you. I know you don't have any followers, but I believe that you will, because you have everything it takes and you built a real business in the real world. You'll garner a lot of respect from people online.
For sure.
You're building steel buildings all over America. Like, you're building a country. It's a real business. Why don't you see what I've done? You feel how you feel about the War Room, and I love the War Room. Why don't you just help me so we can help as many people as possible? Handshake, done. And I never look back. I'll never start a group. I'll never, go out and try to make a war room or anything like that. But that's how it got started. And then it just grew and grew and grew to where it is now. And I get a lot of support from her in that area. And I get a lot of support from my family and the people that run my businesses and everything. So it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, I think, honestly. It's very fulfilling,
I love that. I love that I love the loyalty. I love doing things with friends. I love understanding, hey, I can be bigger as a part of this and win a championship than if I tried to do it on my own.
And I didn't answer you, though. The reason I had not shown it is because I thought that I would want to protect it in some way. But what I came to grow to learn in this time is that people are not seeing the side of me that laughs all the time. They're not seeing the side of me that love people. They're only seeing this rigid side where I'm arguing with some girl that has an OnlyFans account. And that could not be further from who I actually am in real life. And one thing I did learn from Andrew is that I won't make the mistake of not showing that other side of me. Now, I'm not saying he's wrong, but I am saying that there's this other great side of myself and him, and that others should see so they understand the full, wholeness of who we are as people. Because I honestly think I'm a really, really, really good dad. In fact, I know I am. And I expect that I'm going to show that more, because just showing a little bit is more of a lie from omission than it is giving the real truth. So
Yeah, I mean, I get the strategy of building a persona and then sticking to it. But one, I think the people that build a persona, they end up helping people less than they think, because that person is going to test their persona against the real world and finds that it comes up wanting. And when you are your whole self, it's harder to package. I know from experience. But at the same time, you'll feel good about it. You'll have a lot more staying power, because, you know, people know who you are. And as you evolve, you can evolve things. So you don't have to suddenly play a new character. It's just, you're really evolving in real time. And that's that. I think that will play out a lot better. Speaking of the holistic version of you, what makes you good at business?
it's my leadership. Like, in the beginning, I was really big hearted, right? And I wanted to spend time with the guys, and I wanted to help them set up, like, you know, insurance things where they could get wealthy from it. And
But how did you even get your business started? Like, you're a 0 to 1 story. Those are the most brutal. You do not come from money.
Yep.
You don't come from an obvious town that would end up sparking a very successful entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Certainly not. I mean, I would not even know where to start if I had to make a business out of putting up steel buildings. So how do you take that from idea to actually having a multi-million-dollar business?
So I guess I can give you a life path of it. You know, I first had to get a job somehow. It's 2009. I've told this story many times, but basically I went to the same place so many times the boss finally saw me. And instead of getting mad at me, he liked me for interrupting his office so much.
Saying, give me a job.
Yep. And so he gave me a job, and I saved the money up to apply for my contractor's license test. My stepfather had done metal buildings in backyards. And he also had worked for this company. And we had a house fire. We actually had 2 house fires because somebody in our house knew how insurance worked. We spoke about her. And I remember going to this guy's house and being like, this dude puts up metal buildings. He had a basketball court in his house, you know, and he wasn't like balling like this house, but like you could tell, like you go from like a shitty neighborhood to his neighborhood. There was a dissonance between the two, right? And I'm in like 7th grade at this point. I'm like, cool.